I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, Maya Angelou. For nearly a year, I went around the house, the store, the school, and the church without talking and keeping to myself. Then I met or got to know the lady who threw me my first lifeline. Mrs. Bertha Flowers was the upper-class woman of black stance. She had the grace to appear warm in the coldest weather, and on the hot Arkansas summer days she seemed cool. She was thin, and her printed dresses and flowered hats were as right for her as jeans for a farmer. Her skin was dark black. She wore gloves, too. She was our side of town's example of the richest woman in town. I don't think I ever saw Mrs. Flowers laugh, but she smiled often. When she chose to smile on me, I always wanted to thank her. The action was so graceful and kind. She was one of the few real ladies I have ever known, and has remained throughout my life the measure of what a human being can be. Mama had a strange relationship with her. Most often, when Mrs. Flowers passed on the road in front of the store, she spoke to Mama in her soft voice. "Good day, Mrs. Henderson." Mama responded with, "How are you, Sister Flowers?" Mrs. Flowers didn't belong to our church, nor was she Mama's good friend. Why did she insist on calling her Sister Flowers? Shame made me want to hide my face. Mrs. Flowers deserved better than to be called sister. Then Mama left out the verb. Why not ask, "How are you, Mrs. Flowers?" I hated her for showing her ignorance to Mrs. Flowers. It didn't occur to me for many years that they were as alike as sisters, separated only by formal education. Although I was upset, neither of the women were at all bothered by what I thought was an impolite greeting. Mrs. Flowers would continue her walk up the hill to her little house, and Mama kept on doing whatever had brought her to the front porch. Occasionally, though, Mrs. Flowers would wander off the road and down to the store, and Mama would say to me, "Sister, you go on and play." As I left, I would hear the beginning of a private conversation, Mama continuing to use the wrong verb or none at all. But they talked, and from the side of the building where I waited, I heard their voices mixing together. They were interrupted from time to time by giggles that must have come from Mrs. Flowers. Mama never giggled in her life. Then she was gone. She attracted me because she was like people I had never met personally, like women in English novels who walked with their dogs, like the women who sat in front of fireplaces drinking tea and eating cookies. It would be safe to say that she made me proud to be Negro just by being herself. She acted just as well-mannered and civilized as white folks in the movies and books, and she was more beautiful. None of them could have come near that warm color without looking gray by comparison. One summer afternoon, still fresh in my memory, she stopped at the store to buy groceries. Another Negro woman of her health and age would have been expected to carry the paper sacks home in one hand, but Mama said, "Sister Flowers, I'll send Bailey up to your house with these things." She smiled. "Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. I'd prefer Marguerite, though." My name was beautiful when she said it. I'd been meaning to talk to her anyway. Mama said, "Well, that's all right then. Sister, go and change your dress. You're going to Sister Flowers." What did one put on to go to Mrs. Flowers' house? I knew I shouldn't put on a Sunday dress. It wouldn't be right. Certainly not a house dress, since I was already wearing a clean one. I chose a school dress, naturally. It was formal without suggesting that going to Mrs. Flowers' house was the same as attending church. I walked back into the store. Now don't you look nice? I had chosen the right dress. "Mrs. Henderson, you make most of the children's clothes, don't you?" "Yes, ma'am, sure do. Store-bought clothes ain't hardly worth the thread it takes to stitch them." "You do a beautiful job, though. So neat. That dress looks professional." Mama was enjoying the seldom received praise. Since everyone knew, except Mrs. Flowers, of course, could sew well, praise was rarely handed out for the commonly practiced skill. "I try, with the help of the Lord, Sister Flowers, to finish the inside just like I do the outside. Come here, sister." She made me take off the dress. As they talked, I wouldn't look at either of them. Mama hadn't thought that taking off my dress in front of Mrs. Flowers would make me feel like dying. Mrs. Flowers, though, had known that I would be embarrassed, and that was even worse. When Mama told me to, I put the dress back on, picked up the groceries, and went out to wait in the hot sunshine. It would be appropriate if I died before they came outside, just dropped dead on the porch. There was a little path beside the rocky road, and Mrs. Flowers walked in front, swinging her arms. She said without turning her head to me, "I hear you're doing very good schoolwork, Marguerite, but that it's all written. The teachers report that they have trouble getting you to talk in class." The path widened to allow us to walk together, but I stayed behind. "Come and walk with me, Marguerite." I couldn't have refused even if I wanted to. She pronounced my name so nicely. "Now, no one is going to make you talk. Possibly no one can. But remember, language is a man's way of communication with other people, and it is language alone which separates him from the lower animals." That was a totally new idea to me, and I would need time to think about it. "Your grandmother says you read a lot. That's good, but not good enough. Words need more than what is written on paper. They need the human voice to give them deeper meaning. I memorized the part about the human voice giving meaning to words. It seemed so true and poetic. She said she was going to give me some books and that I not only must read them, I must read them aloud. She suggested that I try to make a sentence sound in as many different ways as possible. I'll accept no excuse if you return a book to me that has been badly handled. I couldn't imagine the punishment I would deserve if, in fact, I did abuse a book of Mrs. Flowers. Death would be too kind and brief. The smells in the house surprised me. Somehow I had never connected Mrs. Flowers with food or eating or any other common experience of ordinary people. I made cookies this morning. I had planned to invite you for cookies and lemonade so we could have this little chat. She took the bags from me and disappeared through the kitchen door. I looked around the room that I had never seen, in my wildest dreams imagined I would see. Have a seat, Marguerite, over there by the table. She carried a plate covered with a small towel. I was certain that everything about her cookies would be perfect. Remembering my manners, I took nice little ladylike bites off the edges. She said she had made them especially for me, and that she had a few in the kitchen that I could take home to my brother. It was a dream come true. As I ate, she began the first of what we called later my lessons in living. She said that I must always be intolerant of ignorance, but understanding of a lack of knowledge. That some people unable to go to school were more educated and even more intelligent than college professors. She encouraged me to listen carefully to country people's sayings. In those sayings was wisdom collected through the years. When I finished the cookies, she brushed off the table and brought a thick, small book from the bookcase. I had read A Tale of Two Cities, and it met my standards as a romantic novel. She began to read. The way her voice said the words was nearly singing. When she finished reading, I hadn't really heard to understand a single word. How do you like that? It occurred to me that she expected a response. I had to speak. I said, yes, ma'am. It was the least I could do, but it was the most also. There's one more thing. Take this book of poems and memorize one for me. Next time you visit, I want you to say it for me. On that first day, I ran down the hill and into the road and had the good sense to stop running before I reached the store. I was liked, and what a difference it made. I was respected, not as Mrs. Henderson's grandchild or Bailey's sister, but for just being Marguerite Johnson. I didn't question why Mrs. Flowers had chosen me to give her attention to, nor did I realize that Mama might have asked her to talk to me. All I cared about was that she had made cookies for me and read to me from her favorite book. It was enough to prove that she liked me.